Practical features, a gaming-focused design, as well as an affordable price are the name of the game for the K611 from NPET. Thanks to them for sending out this keyboard for review, but as always, all my opinions are my own. They sent it to me with no strings attached. I'm not getting paid. Everything you hear, they're going to be hearing at the same time you guys are. So this keyboard comes in a great compact layout, which is a good compromise between practical use as well as saving space for gaming. The case is translucent and high gloss and lets some of the RGB spill out, and it looks really cool without being too much. Now for a all plastic keyboard, this is actually pretty heavy. It comes in at about 1 pound, 10 ounces. Together with the rubber feet on this keyboard, it really doesn't budge anywhere. You're not going to have it slipping and sliding around while you're trying to game. Along with a USB-C connection, we have dual Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz wireless. I can't directly test for latency on this keyboard, but comparing the 2.4 gigahertz wireless to the Bluetooth, it feels significantly more responsive. And subjectively speaking, it feels just as good as using a wire. It comes with a pocket on the bottom right about here where you get to stow away the dongle with a little magnet. Along with Windows, it's also compatible with Mac, iOS, and Android. It doesn't use any screws to hold the top and the bottom halves of the case together. It really only holds together with clips. Taking it apart was a little bit of a pain in the butt because you have to get a pretty strong prying tool in between the top and bottom halves of the case to pry it open. I tried to use a plastic one, but that didn't cut it. Looking internally, we see some pretty nice plate foam between the stainless steel plate and the PCB, and we even have some case foam in the case itself. Now, it isn't the fancier EVA foam, it's not quite as dense, and it really eliminates all of that hollowness that you can get from plastic keyboards like this. Now, looking at the stabilizers, we do have some lube on all of these stabilizers, which is also very much appreciated. One other great feature about this keyboard is that it is hot swappable, meaning you're not going to have to solder or unsolder any of these switches if you want to swap them out. And it supports 5 and 3 pin switches, which does make up for the really cheap switches that come in this keyboard, which brings us to the negatives of this keyboard. There's a few things that could use improvements. First off, the switches. They are red linear switches. These are very light and good for gaming use, but they're kind of rough and have a really sharp, clacky sound to them. That may or may not be a problem for you, but it just depends on where your priorities are. If you're just looking for a gaming keyboard that's going to game hard, great. If you're looking for a keyboard that has a little bit more nuance in terms of how it sounds, like you're concerned with the acoustics, you're definitely going to want to pop these switches open and at least lube them. If not, just replace them with your own preferred switches, which is great because, again, this is a hot swap board, so it's really easy to do. Keycaps that come with this board are ABS, which means they will develop shine a little bit faster than your typical PBT keycaps. Along with that, the keycaps themselves are actually pretty thin-walled, so they're not going to have like the deepest sound to them, and the overall quality of some of the legends on these, especially with the modifiers, is definitely kind of rough. All right, now let's see how it sounds out of the box, no changes. Not too bad considering the price of this keyboard, which is 30 bucks. Really cheap for a keyboard that you're getting dual wireless with plate and case foam, pre-lubed stabilizers. This is not bad at all for the asking price. But those switches are definitely not the smoothest sound. So let's swap out the switches with some Gateron pre-lubed yellow switches as well as some PBT keycaps from Acco and see how the sound profile changes. So yeah, it's a really big difference. Honestly, if I had to tell you to pick one thing to upgrade on this keyboard once you get it, probably be the switches. You're either going to want to lube those switches, pop them open, do that yourself. That will be the most economical way to improve the sound on this keyboard. But if you don't want to put in all that time either, you could just buy a set of Gateron yellows or Gateron reds and throw those in there too. So let's give this keyboard a get-go grade. Starting with gaming, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now, as I mentioned before, the red switches are not fancy by any means. However, they are great for gaming. So if you wanted to just buy this keyboard, not worry about anything else, and just start using it, and you're primarily doing just gaming, this is great. NPET also claims this has a sub 1 millisecond response time in 2.4 gigahertz wireless. I just don't have a way of personally testing it, but I can say just from a subjective point of view during my testing in game, felt great, super responsive, and the fact that this is hot swap means that you could really easily swap out these switches with something like Kale speed switches if you really wanted to lean in to the gaming performance of this keyboard. For everyday use, I give it a 7 out of 10. There are a couple things that keep this from getting a higher grade for everyday use, specifically the function road F1 through F12 are on a separate layer. Usually it's as simple as pressing FN and 1 for F1. But with this keyboard, you have to access a separate layer using a keyboard combination. And if you want to go back and use numbers, you have to switch out of that layer to get back to your number row. So just a little bit of a clunky design there. Along with that, the magnet that I mentioned previously that holds the dongle in place is kind of weak. It could fall out pretty easily if you were handling this and it got jostled around in your backpack if you're taking it with you somewhere. So I don't trust the dongle storage. There's no driver to really customize this keyboard. What you get out of the box is what you get. But again, the 65% layout is super nice for saving space on your desk for your mouse pad, or just for chucking it in your bag. It's not huge, it's not overly heavy. For cost, this gets a 9 out of 10. You're only paying 30 bucks, but you're getting a keyboard that is 65% layout, hot swappable, dual wireless with USB-C, and it already comes with plate and case foam, and even that spacebar foam. That's a lot of nice features to have in a keyboard that is way more affordable than a lot of other keyboards that don't have any of that and can cost like $50 to $60. The only issue here is just the case. It's a very soft plastic, really easy to scratch up. It still looks really cool. It looks super nice, but there's definitely, hear that? Some creaking. And that's because it's not fixed with screws, it's only fixed with clips. I feel like you could start to develop some build quality issues here. For my personal opinion, I give this keyboard a 6 out of 10. I was initially a little bit leery about this keyboard, but it definitely way surpassed my expectations. I just personally like keyboards where I can open it up, get a little bit more in depth with the modding, and this is not that. But you have to understand, this is not an enthusiast keyboard. This is a gaming keyboard, and a very affordable one. It's pretty much everything that your typical gamer is gonna want from a keyboard, and at a really low asking price. So overall, the NPET K611 gets a 7.4 out of 10. So who is this keyboard for? This is a keyboard if you don't want to deal with all of the annoying stuff with like lubing the stabilizers and putting tape mods on the PCB. You don't want to deal with that stuff, but you also want to save money. And this is a great entry board for someone who's never had a mechanical keyboard. And if you want to buy like a switch sampler for like 15 bucks on Amazon to see what kind of switch that you prefer, super easy to just chuck them in there, see what you like, and then pick a switch that you like, and now you've got a great keyboard that has your own custom switches. And if you ever wanted to get into the deep, crazy rabbit hole that is keyboards, this is a great starting point, especially if you're a gamer and you want to use this for gaming. Overall, this is just a really nice bang for your buck keyboard, especially those who are just starting out with mechanical keyboards. I can easily recommend this too. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. You guys take care, God bless, and I'll see you on the next one, okay? Take it easy.